Our captains for this week are Eric Frohnapple and Clinton Van Horn on offense, and Jarquez Samuel, who this is the first time for Jarquez, and Corey Tyndall on defense. So it's going to be, again, it's going to be critical. Those guys do a great job this week in practice, which I'm sure they will, along with all the rest of the captains, because we got to have a great week of practice. And that Florida Atlantic team is, they're a very athletic team. They got a lot of guys back from a year ago that their defense led the conference, and offensively, that quarterback Jarquez Johnson, he's a pain in the neck. I mean, he can run it, and he can throw it. And again, I'll probably sound like a broken record here because we seem like we get that type of thing every week, but he's a hard guy to tackle and get on the ground. We did not do that very good job of that a year ago. They got a receiver named Lucky Whitehead who's leading the conference in receptions, all-purpose yardage. He's a big-time punt returner, kick returner, so he's a guy that we have to know where he is because he can score from anywhere on the field. He did it against Alabama. He did it against Western this past weekend, and he's a really good player. So I say many times, anytime you're located in Boca or Miami and with all the players that are around them, they're going to have really good players, and they're very athletic. They can run, and we know we're going to have our hands full. So we have a great week. Again, that game will not be won on Saturday. It'd be won by the way we prepare this week. So we got to do a great job Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and continue our mental preparation till Saturday at 3:30. So that's where we are.
Johnson just went off second half. I don't think he threw an incompletion, and he led them back from a pretty big deficit. He's got that ability to sort of turn it up.
There's no question. He had over 600 total yards and total offense in that game, and they were down in half, and they were able to rally back second half and score a bunch of points. And he's a good player. I mean, we knew going in, and we had problems with him a year ago, so we know exactly what we're getting into. They got a lot of designated quarterback runs that he executes well, and he can also throw it. So, like I say, they got some skill guys with those wideouts are really good. So that's led by Whitehead. So they're a good team. They're a good offensive team.
They're going to be sort of amped up to get up here. They feel like they owe you one after y'all came back on them last year too.
I mean, a different coach. I mean, different team. So I don't know if they were about last year, but they'll have them prepared. They'll do a great job. Charlie will do a great job making sure they're prepared. They're going to play extremely hard. We know that, and so we've got to make sure that we do too.
How much better a passer do you feel Johnson is this year compared to last year?
Well, I thought last year he made all the throws. I mean, if you remember going into our game a year ago, he had just had a tremendous game. I think they were coming off UAB, I think, or somewhere where he just lit it up a year ago, and he hasn't. Not probably played he played his best game this past week against Western, and he's a good player. And we thought that a year ago, and he was. And our opinions hadn't changed this year. He's going to be a handful.
See how this team came back last week against Western. What's that really say about the way this team is made up and how important it is to play 4 quarters of football to put this team away?
Well, they've done that several times. I mean, they came back against UTSA and had to take the last drive down to win. So, they know how to win. They're well prepared. They play extremely hard. They're in great physical shape, evidently, because they've been doing a great job of coming back in the second half. So, like I say, they got athletes everywhere, and so they're like I said, they're good football. They won 6 games a year ago and were bowl eligible, and most of those guys are back. So, again, they got some good players. Anytime you got good players that are coached extremely well, then they're going to be, like I say, they're going to be a good team.
Getting back to Lucky Whitehead, it's not every day you win a ball, you pull out a ball game on a 61-yard screen pass in the last minute. I mean,
yeah, he did.
Have you seen the play, and how incredible was it?
I've seen it, and he just ran away from everybody. I mean, it was a jailbreak screen where he came back inside and he caught it, and like I say, he ran away from Alabama too. So they got some pretty good guys chasing him. So he can run, and he's having a tremendous year. Like I say, he leads this conference in all-purpose yardage. As a punt returner, kick returner, he leads the conference in receptions. So they make an effort to get the ball in his hands, and after watching him play, I can see why.
Give the ball to him a couple of times through the season. What does he do in the running game? You kind of notice?
Well, he's like I say, he's a tremendous guy with the ball in his hands. So they just try to find ways to make sure he gets the touches he gets throughout the game, and they do a good job of getting him the ball. So. Like I say, he is a tremendous player, and we're gonna have we got to make sure we do a great job of getting him on the ground when he gets the ball in his hands.
Talking about the running game, Wes Johnson, he can run as well as throw, and he likes to run first. But when he has the targets downfield that he can go to, how much more dangerous does that make him of being able to throw if you can't limit him from running the football?
Well, anytime you've got a guy that can beat you with his feet, back there, and like you mentioned, they got designated power runs for him. I mean, you know, they got quarterback power and a lot of things in their offense that are designated runs. But then if he gets pressure, he can also get out of the pocket and make throws down the field. So, you know, anytime you got a quarterback that, and it seems like you look around the country today, the majority of people are recruiting guys that can beat you with their feet to get out of trouble, to get out of pressure and that type of thing. And he's dangerous. Not only can he, again, because he can run it, but he can also he does a good job of keeping his eyes downfield and can get the ball in the open receivers.
And it's not turning the ball over at all, is it?
No, he does a good job of taking care of the football, and he's like I say, he's a good football player. And again, we knew going in a year ago he was. I mean, he didn't, you know, unfortunately, he didn't disappoint us, and so you know we got to make sure that our guys do a great job of, number one, containing him. But number two, when you tackle him, you better wrap him up, because it's not like tackling a quarterback. It's like tackling some fullback with the ball in his hands. So you got to do a great job of getting him on the ground.
That was something Rouse pointed out yesterday. He said he compared him a lot to Thomas from Virginia Tech last year. How important is it to continue making good open field tackles, or with this guy, get him slowed down until someone else gets there?
There's no question. He's got a great lower body. I mean, he looks a little bigger than he was a year ago, to be honest. And he's got extremely strong legs, and you know he does a good job. Like I say, he ran through us a year ago when we were trying to get him on the ground, and I see him running through people this year. So you know he hadn't changed, and he's probably a little stronger because he's a year older.
What did you see from their true freshman running back last week? It was the first action that they had really put him in, and he went over 100 yards before. He
did. You know, they put him in there, and he fumbled the second time he had the ball, and they took him out, but he stuck him back in there in the second half, and you know, ended up getting over 100 yards, and he's a good player. It's like that true freshman that FIU had down there last week. I mean, you know, those guys are good players. There's a lot of good players around there, and if you do a good job recruiting, then you know, they're going to have a good guy that can put the ball in his hands, and they did that. But it showed confidence in him in the second half, and he came back and did a nice job.
Jarquez, some of the players were mentioning yesterday, it was kind of a renewed dedication to conditioning and weight room that's really made the difference with him. Is that, you seen that too?
Our Jarquez,
Yeah,
Samuel?
Jarquez.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he's renewed. I mean, they got no choice but to go in our weight room and get stronger. And they go in there, they're going to work hard, or they don't. But I think he started, you know, sometimes defensive linemen take a little longer to develop, and he started to really come around last year, you know, in fall camp, not this year, but the year before. And he just continues to get better and better, and he's playing at a really high level right now. Him and, you know, we challenged him, and we challenged Massaquoi and Steve Dillon and Armand Daniels are kind of the four guys that we really challenged a little over a year ago now, and all four of those guys have met that challenge and are playing really well for us. So, again, those defensive linemen sometimes tend to develop a little later than other kids, but Jarquez has become a really good player.
And with his, kind of his growth, where in getting to the point where he is now, where do you see his greatest strides have been made?
Just his mental toughness. You know, it's like defensive line is not a whole lot of fun. I mean, you get beat up every day in practice, and you're constantly pounding each other. And but it's, you know, it's fun in game day, and you get a chance to go in there and play. But there's a lot of work that goes into it during the week, and you know, those guys have got to be mentally tough to go through to go through our practices with JC and Sean. But just his mental toughness, and you know, he just practices every day, goes to work every day, and it's paying off.
Doc, how refreshing was it to see your guys respond after a little bit of a slow start?
Well, you know, Keith, I mentioned after that game, I was kind of glad to see that because we hadn't had any adversity. You know, a little bit in the Miami game, I guess, early on that first game, but other than that, there hadn't been a whole lot. I mean, we've kind of jumped up on people, and I was glad to see those kids respond. Again, we walked in that locker room, there wasn't a whole lot of worried faces. I mean, they knew what we had to get done, had to tackle better, had to get lined up and just make more plays, and we went out there and did that in the second half.
Not that you all emphasize trying to get takeaways, but especially it seems like across the board skill guys, for them, they've had a problem with putting the ball on the ground. Is that something that you all reiterate to the guys this week as far as
FAU turned it over? Yeah. Anytime you go into a game, I mean, I had major concerns about that last week, and because FIU had led the country in creating turnovers. They were like 24 throughout the year, and they were really high in turnover margin, and so it was critical that we took care of the ball. But I think anytime you get into that game, any game, whether it be that last week or this week, you know, turnovers can determine the game, you know, and if you can create turnovers and get them, and if you don't turn it over, you got a heck of a chance to win. So, you know, anytime you go into a football game, you want to take care of the ball on our side and try to create turnovers on their side, and hopefully we'll get a few of them.
Did some of the people from FAU last night about their secondary and said they're very physical out on the edges. And said they may not be the most talented people, but their speed can make up of regaining the position they need to get to. How dangerous is it to have a kid that can just let their athletic ability take over on the field like that?
Well, they're all back. Now, they lost to one kid, number 3. He's in the NFL right now. He was a good player a year ago, but those other guys are back, and they've played a lot of football. And, there's any time you get that kind of athletic secondary back there that they have. And you go back, I thought FIU defensively can play with anybody. That Leonard, and FAU's got the same type of talent back there. So, if you're, like say, you're located in Boca and you're located in Miami, if you don't have really good talent, skill positions, you're not doing a very good job recruiting, because there's plenty of them down there. And if you just take the right guys, you're going to have really good skill guys. And they do, and they should.
They still have DeJon Smith, the guy who intercepted K-Hill on the very first pass last year.
They do, yeah. Yeah, he's a good player.
He's a big time, isn't he?
He is. They're all are. Like I say, they're all good players. And, if you do a great job evaluating talent, and chances are you're going to have really good skilled kids, and they do.
Does White, in the return game, does Whitehead remind you of Richard Leonard with his ball abilities?
Yeah, maybe a little more dynamic. I thought Richard Leonard was extremely dynamic. I felt that going in, but turn Whitehead on, and he's just as dynamic, or maybe a little more. And like I say, he's averaging like 17 yards per return on punts, and he's leading the conference in all-purpose yardage. And if you watch that screen, he took against Western that last to win the game for him. He can accelerate, and he can really run.
How beneficial is it this week to remember last year's game, how much of a struggle that was, and,
Doug, I don't think we're going to have to convince our kids that these guys can play, if that's what you're getting at, because, like I say, we struggled a year ago at times getting this guy on the ground, and they understand that, and Lucky Whitehead did not have the year a year ago he's having right now. He's in addition to that offense that they didn't have a year ago. Dukes and some of those guys are all back, but Whitehead was not. He was on that team, but didn't have the production he's having right now. So you add him to that offense, and they're dangerous. And our kids, they'll have great respect for him, because, as you mentioned, we didn't actually, we went down there last year and struggled at times blocking them, and struggled at times tackling, but we found a way to win the game. So, that being said, they'll respect these guys, because, what happened to them down there a year ago.
We had talked about, Stu, had practice issues and things like that in previous weeks. We talked to some of the guys on Monday, and they said Stu had his best week of practice last week, and then it shows up in the game when you all need it.
There's no question. He practiced. He practiced extremely well last week, and Stu's issue hadn't always been. He's had some injury. He's dealing with some injury deal he's dealing with. He's got some issues that, some groin issues and some things that, he can't. He's working hard. He's in the training room every day, and some of the practice part of it hadn't been him. It's been he's been hurt. But he had a great week last week, and he'll have a great week this week too. I like Stu. I told you all along, and I like watching him run the ball in the game. But you practice, you play the way you practice, and if he can go out and have a great week of practice, he's going to play. And he's done that. He did that last week, and again, it showed in the game.
From a confidence standpoint, though, that run that he had to be able to feel that burst, and to put that sort of uneasiness about getting that burst behind him, was that big for him?
Well, it was. I hadn't seen him run like that, to be honest. I haven't seen him run like that in 2 or 3 weeks because of the injuries he's had. And like I say, when he's healthy and practices well, he plays well. But bottom line is, guys, you on Saturdays, when you do it out there on the practice field during the week, it happens on Saturdays, and that's it's the way we do things. And same thing with the wideouts. Those plays those guys are making, they make them out here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So it happens in the game. So he's no different. But he's had a great week. He felt good again today and yesterday. So I expect him to have another great week this week.
Will he be taking on a more prominent role this week, or is Remy okay enough to kind of go back to it?
Remy will probably practice a little bit today. So we'll see where it is. But we'll get Bird. Bird had a personal issue that he wasn't here a week ago. He had to go, had a deal in the family there he had to get home to, but he's back now. So we got Bird and Remy and Stu, and we got Pittman and Devins. So of those 5 guys, we'll find a couple guys who can put the ball in their hands.
Teams have had success being able to run the ball against this FAU team, more specifically Nebraska, the first part of the season. What have you guys been able to see in film that exploit that defense to be able to effectively run the ball like you have so far this season?
Well, we just got to continue. Our offensive line's got to continue to do a good job of IDing them and blocking them, and they've done that all year. Now, this group here, we didn't block them very well a year ago, and again, a lot of these guys are back, so we'll just have to do a good job of getting hats on the right people and just do what we've been doing, inside outside zones and do what we do. So hopefully we can block them a little better this year than what we did a year ago, because we didn't block them a year ago.
How important is it for their defense to have Andre Kirk there? And as one of the leaders of that defense at his linebacker spot, I think he's 46.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, they're, like I say, you talk about Whiteheads and Johnsons and all those guys on offense. I mean, they got the same guys on defense. You talked about the secondary being back, and they are, with the exception of 3. And same thing. They lost a really good linebacker. 4 was a really good player for them. He's gone, but the rest of them are back. And they're no different than the skill guys. Those linebackers can run now. I mean, you saw FIU's linebackers ran well. These guys are no different.
Coach, can you talk about the defensive motivational change last week? A.J. Leggett, this week, Corey Tidal, big interceptions. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, those kids are good players, and we work really hard at trying to make plays like that. A.J. Leggett, the week before, as you mentioned, made a great interception. Corey Tindall's a really good player. Swag's a good player, and those guys, if you keep playing hard like they do, sooner or later, that turnover is going to happen. And when we talk all the time about being the opportunity when you have a chance to make a play, make it. Normally that's what good players do. And Corey Tindall had the opportunity Saturday to make that play and did. Jarquez had an opportunity to make a play. It's funny because Jarquez did that in practice last week. But believe it or not, that play that got tipped to him, and he ended up doing that in practice last week. Well, it happened in the game, which was great. But AJ the week before, and Chuck works hard all the time with ball drills and trying to put those kids in those situations. But the bottom line is, when you get the opportunity, normally really good players find ways to make plays, and those 2 kids did. But that was great to see.
Well, with Tyndall, I mean, it's been a long time coming for a pick for him. And he's got like 13, 14 pass breakups in his career, and just hadn't secured that first one.
And we were kidding him. I said we thought he was a receiver in high school, and he's never made a catch out there. But it was great to see. It was great to see him make that play, and he's a talented guy.
If a kid like Yurachek have an opportunity to come his way to catch that pass from Cato, how big is it to see the production he stepped up and give you?
Well, he's going to be a really good player, and he's a great kid that he works hard. And it's funny, Cato mentioned it was going to be him, but it was about 98 yards short, I guess. So that being said, I'm glad Cato got that kind of off his plate a little bit, and we don't have to worry about that now. But that being said, I really didn't care who got it as long as he got it. But might as well be Yurachek. He's a great kid.
FAU's got the same offensive coordinator, but different defensive coordinator. What are they doing different?
A little different, Doug. They're a little different with their philosophy, with what they're doing. They're not playing quite as much bracket stuff, and they're still playing quarters. They're still playing some man free stuff. Very similar to us coverage-wise, which should help us a little bit this week. They're a bit of man press, and so they're going to line up and play us a little bit like our defense does. So, we have the opportunity to go against that quite a bit. So practice this week will be a little easier, so we don't have to card near as much stuff up.
How pleased are you with how your team's handled success so far?
I am, Keith, and and I'm going to address that again today. We've got ESPN coming in here. We got all this stuff happening, and to be honest with you, I was wanting to cancel it all, and I didn't want, because I don't want distractions. But you know what? I thought back at when we were at Florida and really good and had some really good teams. That's what happens to good teams. I mean, you get that kind of press, and you get people wanting to talk to you, and you get people coming in. It's not a bad thing. It's a great thing, to be honest. And so we're not canceling it, but they're going to understand today. I'm going to talk to them today about, again, along with all this stuff that's happening for them comes responsibility. And if we don't go to work every day and get better as a team and come out here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and go to work, then we're going to get beat, and all these goals and expectations are going to have to win it pretty quick. So, we've got to embrace it, but we also got to be able to handle it. And so we'll. I like our guys, Keith. I think we got great leadership on this team, and I think they'll handle it. I know they will.
When's ESPN coming down?
I think it's tomorrow, right? Tomorrow. Yeah.
I know that's something I won't say it's a goal, but something you probably hoped that you would have, that type of notoriety, that type of spotlight. But how nice is it to, just a few years in, this is now what you've been able to accomplish? and this team's been able to accomplish that ESPN is not saying, hey, let's come to Huntington?
Well, that's great, because I guarantee 3 years, hell, nobody want to talk to us, except you guys. So it's, it's all good. But again, we got to understand that, and not that you guys are bad, I mean, but you guys just didn't have anything else to do, But,
There were a couple games
You know.
that we didn't really want to talk
well,
about. Gary,
there's a couple games I don't want to talk to you either, I promise you, especially Smock. But and Landon, he ain't here. But it's all good. I mean, like I say, it's great for a university. It's great for a community, and any time that we have people talking about us and wanting to find out our story, I think it's a hell of a deal. So we're excited about it, but we also have to understand that we got to be able to handle it and go to work every day. So.
Is it sort of surreal to think about what 2014 has entailed for not only the program, but Marshall's athletics department in general? I mean, you get the facility built, the expectations coming in. Cato breaks the record. You all are nationally ranked for the first time since '02, and I mean, there's a lot going on here that you can sort of get lost in it because it goes by so quickly.
Well, it's great. I mean, like I say, it's when I took the job 5 years ago, this was our goal and dream to get where we are, and we're not satisfied where we are by any stretch, but we wanted to get to this point at some time, and I felt we could do that. I wouldn't have taken the job, and still got a lot of work to do. I mean, there's still a lot of football left to be played, but at least right now we're on track, and we got to continue to work extremely hard to make sure that like I say, we don't become complacent and all of a sudden think we've arrived, because you're going to get better, you're going to get worse. You don't stay the same as coaches and players and everybody, and if we don't stay on top of things and continue to go to work, then like I say, it's going to be out the window pretty quick. But I know our kids are excited about being back home. They're anxious to run in that stadium Saturday to a sold-out crowd, and we're really looking forward to being back home.
Any other banged-up guys you expect maybe to be
I think for the most part they're all practicing today, so I think we should be pretty good.
As a coach, you have a win like Saturdays in which guys go back to see family at 45-13, and defensive guys weren't very happy. They felt like they were kind of sloppy, especially in the first half. Is that the best compliment to a coaching staff when guys aren't really thrilled even though they won by such a margin?
Well, I think it's good. We didn't tackle very well. I think that's the biggest thing they're not really happy about. We've been a good tackling team the entire year, and that first half, part of our issues, we didn't tackle well. So I thought they corrected that in the second half. But there's always, like I say, you don't stay the same. You got to get better. And there's some things coming out of that game that we can, as a defense and an offense, and also our kicking game, that we got to improve on. And we'll go out there today here in a couple hours or an hour and a half, whatever it is, and go back to work on those things we need to improve on.
What was the missed tackle count? Single digits.
That wasn't single digits. I guarantee it was like 17, I think, which for us, I think we've been single digits for the last 6 games, and we had about as many net games we had in the last 3, so that part of it needs to get fixed. Okay, thanks, guys.